Hi, so I think we are live with our Google Hangout, our post-debate analysis after the youth versus MP debate. Sorry we had a bit of a technical dropout there for those who were watching the live stream, but I hope you caught most of it. A great event. So I'm joined here by Ruby Sands, UNICEF Youth Ambassador, who participated in the first event, and also Holly Walmsley, who participated in the second event there. So over to you, Ruby. The first debate, the moot was, is New Zealand a great place to be a child? What were your highlights from that debate?
I think the highlights were really being able to drive home some of the statistics that are facing New Zealand children and being able to really come to grips on what poverty in New Zealand looks like for a lot of children.
Yes, it was relatively fiery there. We had agreement across the board for the sake of the debate, but we had Materia Ture there taking the sarcastic, satirical approach. Yeah, who was the winner again, Ruby?
The youth team. So we were pretty happy to win, and to know that a lot of other young people are voicing the same opinions who were in the room with us and really want to see action from our MPs on these issues.
Yes, that's true. And Holly, you participated in the second debate. Aid is the best way to combat global poverty. What were your highlights from that debate?
Probably my highlights from the debate would have to be that starting the debate I didn't really know how it was going to go. It kind of could have gone either way, so seeing what the MPs had to say and then following up with our rebuttal and everything, it turned out to be a really good debate.
Yes, and what did you think of some of the Jan Logie had some good points there around climate change, and I think Tracy Williams about trade also. What did you think about what they were saying about those issues?
I think the issues were quite relevant, but at the same time I also thought that our issues could have combated them in some ways. I mean, coming from my personal perspective, I wasn't completely for my affirmative team, so I did kind of agree with some of the things that they had to say despite being in the debating situation. So they did raise some good points.
Great. And back to you, Ruby, was there anything that you thought wasn't said that you wanted to say or didn't have the opportunity to from a youth perspective?
Not necessarily that, but really looking in New Zealand at what youth participation looks like and what meaningful youth participation for not just engaged youth, but youth that might otherwise be disengaged, to be involved with the government and what they would like to see the government take on board and how we would know that they're taking it on board, because a lot of the time, and it was raised in the questions afterwards, we tell MPs things but it doesn't get taken. We don't see it being taken on board in Parliament, or we don't see the change that we want to see. And so really creating discussion about what we would want to see happen and what would make us feel that our views and opinions have been heard.
Absolutely. I mean, from UNICEF's perspective, it's really important to give young people like you a platform to have your say. But I think someone pointed out during the debate that actually the children and young people who don't have these kind of opportunities to participate in debates or to have their voices heard in front of decision makers. And I think Simon O'Connor mentioned the use of Facebook and Twitter as a way to engage with young people. What are your thoughts on that?
I think in Facebook and Twitter it's really hard, like an MP can reply and say, oh yes, it's a great suggestion, this is what we're currently doing, but a lot of young people we want to be able to see the change, or we want to be able to see MPs really take it on board, and with social media we don't see that so much, so I think it's really getting to grips with what meaningful conversations we can have about youth participation, and also including social media, which can help people who are outside the main cities or away from their constituencies really engage with their MPs.
Absolutely. And then we have the other issue, Holly, in the international aid debate of children who are living overseas and what New Zealand what role we're playing here in terms of our international aid. And I think it was great to qualify also what is aid, and is it just money that we're talking about, and what approaches that people are taking there. What did you think from, I think John Hayes had some pretty powerful statements to make there, and obviously a very seasoned and experienced in the foreign policy sphere. Holly, how did you find that?
I think personally it's quite hard to come up against someone who can back up his points with personal experience, something that our youth side didn't really have to our advantage. But at the same time, even though we had the second speaker of the team who was almost on our side, so that was a bonus, but it was coming up against somebody who had the first-hand experience and could say all these things that go wrong, but we already know that there are things that go wrong. It's just that we do it for the things that go right. I mean, it's not all about this is so bad, so we should do nothing about it. I mean, we should not really say that that's justifying not helping other people out, just because sometimes it goes wrong.
I think there was some conversation there also around New Zealand Inc. and I think the conversation about different political parties coming together for certain issues was a really interesting one. But the idea that when we are operating abroad, that we're operating as the same country as New Zealand Inc. and Jan Logie feeling a little bit offended by that label. What do you think about the concept of New Zealand Inc. and our reputation, I suppose, overseas in that way?
I suppose with that sort of thing, it's trying to combine a lot of political views in one, so it's really difficult to put out a New Zealand view with such a, as we saw, diverse background of MPs. But I think it's a good way to try to detach the politics from the aid and from helping other countries, because in lots of other countries we don't want to relate it to a certain political party, because that can take people right off the mark. They don't really want to support something that comes from a political party.
Ruby, what about you? How do you feel about the New Zealand Inc. idea?
I think some of the aspects of it could be applied to tackling child poverty in New Zealand. The idea that we move collectively on issues internationally, I think we can do that at home, but definitely in providing a cohesive front on international trade deals and on other international issues is really important.
Okay, great. Well, I think that it was brilliant to have you two on board, and it was a lively debate, moderated incredibly well, I thought, by Linda Clark, added some humour in there also. Serious issues to talk about, child poverty, international aid, but I think great to have a broad panel of youth engaged on the issues, and great to see the MPs really getting involved and participating enthusiastically. Any last comments before we draw it to a close?
I would really encourage other young people in New Zealand to make a mini event similar to this within their school or within their region, and really engage their politicians in debate about issues that are important to them, even if they're just really small issues that affect you. Maybe a bus stop's been moved, maybe there's kids at your school who are struggling. Like, you can really engage with your MPs and bring those issues onto the agenda for your electorate or for your area.
Great, thanks Ruby. And Holly, anything final for you?
Just to back up what Ruby's saying, you have to realise that although you may think that although you may think that you don't have the power because you're not sitting in the big seat, your vote will count. Election is coming up soon, so you can use your personal power. I mean, there's a lot of us out there, youth, that are going in that not voting category, so I mean, when you use your vote, you can make a difference. It's when you don't vote that it's perhaps not so effective.
And on that point, if you are voting, you come up as a demographic that has voted, and you're perceived as really important to MPs. They want to win your vote. They want to do things that they want to listen to your views and take them on board so that you will vote for their party. So definitely do get out and vote, even if you feel that certain apathy towards voting, or towards that maybe one party's just going to win, or anything like that. Just get out and vote, have your say, because you're definitely more likely for your age group to have their views heard.
Absolutely. Well, thank you to you both, and I think following on from Ruby's comment there, if you are under 18 and can't vote, you also have a say, and please do speak to your MP and find those platforms for having your voices heard. And UNICEF New Zealand is certainly proud to support both of you in this debate, and is pleased with how things went. Thanks for those of you who engaged via Twitter, #YouthVersusMPs. I'm sure the debate will continue on there. And Ruby and Holly, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.